Long time no see. I got all of this working, so we are off to the races on using OBS for your first Research Lab 1 desktop computer performance. Um, and yeah, let's just do a little walkthrough of what we got here. I got OBS. I got my Zoom meeting right here. I got my notes on what we're going to cover, and I'll also use it as one of the sources in here. And I got a little browser with New York Times open. Um, but just to talk a little bit about what we're using and some of the problems I encountered before, um, I didn't have the most current version of Zoom. That doesn't always mean that we need the most current version of Zoom, but sometimes there is an alchemy of different versions of different softwares or even your desktop to get all this stuff to work. I wouldn't change anything off the back. I would just try it with what you have. And if it's not working, then that's where maybe we should reconsider what versions we have. So the version I have everything working with is I have OBS 26.1.2, which is I think the latest version for Mac. OBS is also on Windows. I'm not doing a Windows specific tutorial, but it shouldn't be any different. It works for both platforms. I have Zoom. Right now I'm running Zoom 5.5.0. And I believe you can just if you have Zoom open, you can just say check for updates. And then I'm using Big Sur version 11.2. And that's the last thing I would upgrade. I know a lot of people are probably holding back. Sometimes with big OS updates, things tend to break. So if you're still using Catalina and all that, that's totally fine. It shouldn't impact things, but you can see I got things working with these versions. Cool. Let's get that out of the way. So I have OBS here. I opened it up, I installed it. I went to OBS, and this is what you get. This kind of little software that is not going to win any design awards for its user interface or GUI, but it's very robust and still works just fine. And let's walk through a little of what we have here. We have our scenes, we have our sources, we have the audio mixer, there's some other buttons right here, and then we have this kind of canvas. First thing we're going to look at is scenes. A scene is where we're going to compose a group of our sources. And our sources are basically all the different things we're going to compose to be on our canvas. So the way to add a scene, it probably come with something called scene. I just go down to this plus button, and let's say I want to name this webcam. Or yeah. And it gives me a new scene. And I need to fill that scene with something. So I'm going to say on the sources, I can also do a plus. There's a couple of different options. There's a lot of different options, actually. The ones I'm really concerned with are display capture, image, media source, and video capture device. So let's try video capture device. Video capture device is just a fancy way of saying your camera. So if I click on that, and let's say I call this FaceTime HD, because that's usually what our webcam on Apple computers is called. You can name it whatever you want. And it's going to give you this thing, the properties for this source. And I get to choose the device. I'm going to choose FaceTime HD. I could even choose a different resolution for it and whatnot. And that's great. That's perfect. And you can see now I have an actual source I can move around. I could also make it visible or invisible with that eye icon. I could lock it so I can't move it around. I could also resize it so it fits this. And one thing you'll notice is they are mirrored versions of each other. This is the correct version, or this is like the ground truth of what you'll see. In Zoom, your audience is going to see this version, but you see your own version turned around. And to demonstrate that, if you look at this, you can see that I can read the text in this window right here, but in this one it's backwards. It's only backwards to me. It's not backwards to the audience. If you ever lose your mind about it, you can just ask someone in a Zoom call what they see. Sometimes it breaks my brain trying to think about it. But anyway, back to the thing. I have my camera right here. If I had another webcam plugged in, I could double click on this source and choose a different device. I could also add another webcam and give it a different name. I don't have another cam plugged in, so I guess I'll just do FaceTime again. And you can see I can start to layer stuff on top of each other. So I could do a whole like webcam inception if I wanted. And here's where things get interesting. The way we're going to use this for the performance. If I say start virtual camera, what happens if I go to zoom over here and click on this, I can choose a different camera input. And what's happening is OBS is sending anything in its canvas here as a fake camera that you can choose as an input into QuickTime, into MaxMSP, into Zoom, like this. So you can see now we can use our Zoom window as a performance medium. We can use it as our performance canvas. We'll just have to pin each other in next week's class for each person that's up. And we're just going to watch their screen, and they can do whatever they want in real time. And they can switch between different scenes and whatnot. And that's how you're going to do your desktop performance. And that's why this tool, OBS, is so important. So, pretty cool, right? Like now we can hack Zoom and we can do performances in it. And we have this amazing like TV studio mixer kind of tool that we're using. So let's keep looking at some of these sources. I'm going to get rid of this other cam one like that. I'm going to make another scene. I'm going to call this one desktop. I'm going to add a source. And this one I'm going to say display capture. And if I have multiple displays, I could, it's always helpful to be able to see my face when I'm giving a tutorial. I think so at least. So I'm going to turn this back on so that we just trust that that's what's going out there. I have display 0. If I had a secondary monitor, it might be display 1. You could toggle between the two of them. But basically just showing everything on my desktop right here. And my desktop is a higher resolution than the canvas. We'll show you how to set the canvas size later. So I need to then make it smaller. And you can see I got some of that video feedback here. Remember we were talking about that in class? It's that kind of infinity. It's looking at the desktop, and it's projecting the desktop, looking, projecting. So you could, have some fun with that. There's like things to play with there. And you can see it's actually a different resolution than my desktop is a different aspect ratio than my canvas at the moment. So that's something to consider. Right now, I'll just put it to the left right here. And what's cool is like we saw in that John Satrom piece, like now my entire desktop is just a thing I can perform with. It'll show up as my webcam once I change to my OBS virtual cam there. And I can always go back and forth between these things. Another thing, actually, let's see. What are the other sources in here? Oh, we could also add, if I got a webcam, I could add a media source. That's just a video file. And I can choose to loop it. I can do the speed. I can browse for that file. I have this green screen footage I found. Someone in VR. And we can also do things like filters and transforms. So not only, like I could have this as a picture-in-picture right here. Let's say I want it to be sideways. I can right-click on my source here, and I could say transform, and I can do things like stretch to screen, rotate, flip, and whatnot. So if I flip this 90 degrees, you can play with that. I could turn myself upside down, transform, rotate 180 degrees. So you can see we're starting to get to play with these elements. Another thing is I can right click and I can say filters. And there's audio and video filters and effect filters. I'm going to look at effect filters. And there's a couple of different things. Crop is another big one that we'll be looking at, but also color key or even chroma key. Scroll just auto scrolls it. Scaling, I think, lets you do some stuff. You could also delay something if you wanted. The image mask or blending is another thing if you want to use alpha planes. You can do both green screen and alpha planes. Any image you bring in that has a transparent alpha layer, like if you wanted to make a border, you could import that as an image and it would automatically take that alpha layer out. So you could have that. Continuing on, I choose color key, and it's at green. I can play with like the similarity. You can see right there. I can get the smoothness down. And that's about good for this. And I will rotate things back. And I'll flip this again. And that's pretty cool. Like you can actually get this kind of seamless blending here. So then I can go back to zoom. And it's nice. Like it looks like I didn't do the perfect job because it's a little transparent. So I could go back and I could tweak those settings again. But now it looks like we have this tiny person in our screen in virtual reality. Excuse me. And yeah, just to go back through these sources, the other big one, image, is kind of self-explanatory rather than the media source. Also, all of these, I encourage you to like experiment with them. I'm not going to cover them. Some of them I just don't find that useful, but it's worth knowing. Maybe you'll find it more useful than I do. The other big one is window. Oh, text is a good one. I won't cover it, but basically just lets you overlay any text you want over something. The big one is window capture. So I can do Chrome. And I could actually, it gives me everything that's an independent window on this desktop. So I could go to Google Chrome, New York Times. And this is another important thing. What if I wanted to have this be behind that woman there? I think, could I just layer it like this? Yeah, that's one way. I think you can also right click and say order, move up, move down. So, usually it's easier to choose the source of something down here. And in real time, it'll show me manipulating that element of the New York Times. I could also go to, I don't know, what's another good website I go to? Polygon is a video game website. So you can see, I can kind of just mix and match anything in here. And like I can have different things, desktop and scene and web camera. Like I can build different things in that way. So that's like, I hope that gives you some ideas. I'm going to cover a few other things really quick, but like this kind of element of collage, this element of anything on your computer is something that can be used in this visual performance space through Zoom and your webcam, is like the basis of this entire class. We will use this in every single thing we do from here on out. You have this like free open source robust mixing studio that you can use for any your thesis presentation. This is a great tool. Like the next like Zoom cocktail hour that's boring, you can like try and trick people or make them think they're going crazy or their camera's glitching out, and you actually just built your own kind of thing and whatnot. Any software like a P5 sketch you can bring in here and mix with other things. Any Mac software like a Unity scene, like sky's the limit. And you can think about adding like green backgrounds or backgrounds you can key out, and you can kind of like overlay things on top of each other. This is it. This is your space to create in. All right, I'm gonna turn those things off just to get back to the basics here. just some other things to think about in scene transitions. Right now it's fading between everything. You can change that here too. You could have a slide, like if you wanted to, and you can set the duration here. You can add things like just a cut, just make it automatic. So that's one thing. There's also studio mode. This is more like show production, I think, maybe than for your own thing. But basically, what it lets you do is you can preview what you would transition to, and then like this is the program that's outputting. This is the preview, and I could choose fade to black, fade to it, cut to this. So it's just more of a studio production mode kind of thing. Otherwise, this just shows up like that. Settings. Let's go through settings a little bit. It's probably not going to let me change things because the virtual camera is on. But let's just take a look through here. Just the general settings you can kind of go through and check on your own. Streaming, we'll cover this later, but this is how you set up. You have a stream for your stream key for Twitch, and you can hit start streaming, and anything you do in there will go to your Twitch account. So that's one way to set it up like that. We can record. Actually, if you ever want to record your rehearsal, like this is the place to do it. You can do it right in OBS. You can choose where it records to, what the recording quality is or format, and it's super useful. So like all you have to do, if I go back actually, all you have to do is say start recording, and it'll start writing the file, and then stop recording, and you'll be set there. So, audio, we're not going to we'll cover audio next week. There's not much to do with it right now. Here's where it is with video. Like the reason my desktop came in so big is I probably have like a 4K resolution in my desktop, but the canvas resolution is 1920 by 1080. So I could, if I turned off my virtual camera settings, I could scale that down, scale it up. Zoom probably compresses things so much that I'm not sure why you would do 4K over Zoom, but you're welcome to try. That's all something. You can also build hotkeys. And you can even build to like switch to specific scenes if you wanted to use like switch to a scene 1 is the hotkey, or 2, 3. You get the idea. You just like type in whatever it is and it'll coordinate with that. And then I don't think I've ever really messed with the advanced stuff. And I think you hit apply and you hit OK. So yeah, so that's all I guess I kind of covered everything. Oh, there's one last thing. Let's say you wanted to like see something and make sure it was working even if you weren't on that scene. You could do things like FaceTime. I could go to right click and say windowed projector. Now, regardless of what scene I'm on, I always can see that source. So if I wanted to make sure my camera was set up in the right way before I transitioned, I could use this as kind of like a way to look at it. You could probably also figure out how to do some pretty interesting feedback tricks by having it be a source right here and making another, and then using window capture to capture it again. Think about exploring that somehow, how you would make your own kind of complex windowed feedback loops for things on your desktop and whatnot. And I guess my last thing to say with all that is just explore. What are some websites that do some things What are some aspects of your computer on the actual the functionality of it that could be used as a performance tool? How could you have text overlay on this? How could you have live chat overlay on this? How can you have an interactive component? How can you have it be live? You can use the chat in Zoom for this performance. You can try, if you want to take recommendations of things to type or things to do. If you want to do phone calls, you could even get a wireless phone camera in here. We're going to show you a more robust way, but if you started a FaceTime call with your cell phone here and then chose that as a window source, suddenly your cell phone's a walking around wireless camera that you can bring in. So there's all sorts of hacks you can play with it. That's it. That's me rambling enough. I hope that this is enough to get you going and get you started. You need to make a 1 to 2 minute performance. Let's aim for 2 minutes. And yeah, I'm excited to see what everybody turns out. And don't forget, like if you want to do the bonus where you do a recording of one of your rehearsals, you can just do it right here in this exact same setup that you're already using. Oh, one last thing. This will start to overheat your computer or like just bog your computer down. The more and more and more you add into all of these sources, like there's only so much it can do. I don't know the formula for your computer, like how much it can handle. Usually the best way to find out is just keep adding stuff until it starts to slow down. That tells you should probably take your foot off the gas a little bit there. But it is a little bit intensive on the computer processing part, but it's not so intensive you can't do something interesting. All right, enjoy. I'll see you in class next week.